Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.
It seems like a new biography of President Abraham Lincoln comes out every couple of years, trying to uncover new perspectives of his time and his character. Lincoln himself didn't write much about his life, so what he did put down on paper has an outsized importance. On today's episode of our feature series, McHistory, listen how a Bloomington-Normal man nudged Lincoln to do just that.
I was born February 12th, 1809, in Hardin County, Kentucky. My parents were both born in Virginia, of undistinguished families. Second families, perhaps I should say.
It's December 1859 when Abraham Lincoln, after promising for many months, delivers a autobiographical statement or sketch, what he calls a letter sketch, to Jesse Fell in Bloomington-Normal.
I am Frankie Gordey, an intern with the McLean County Museum of History.
This is Bill Kemp, librarian, McLean County Museum of History.
My mother, who died in my 10th year, was of a family of the name of Hanks, some of whom now reside in Adams and others in Macon County, Illinois.
And Lincoln will write Fell in a cover letter, quote, "There's not much of it, I suppose, for the reason that there is not much of me," being self-deprecating somewhat.
My father, at the death of his father, was but 6 years of age, and he grew up literally without education. He removed from Kentucky to what is now Spencer County, Indiana, in my 8th year.
The sketch runs, I believe, 599 words, so it's not very long, even though it's called an autobiography. But it's only one of two times that Lincoln really sits down and reflects on his life and puts down some sentences.
We reached our new home about the time the state came into the Union. It was a wild region, with many bears and other wild animals still in the woods. There I grew up.
Jesse Fell is one of the more important early figures in local history, but he also plays a more prominent national role in getting Lincoln to write this.
There were some schools, so-called, but no qualification was ever required of a teacher beyond the reading, writing, and ciphering. If a straggler, supposed to understand Latin, happened to sojourn in the neighborhood, he was looked upon as a wizard.
The two met in Vandalia back in the winter of 1834-35. Lincoln was a state lawmaker at the time, Vandalia being the state capital, and the two formed a friendship. They shared a lot of values.
There was absolutely nothing to excite ambition for education. Of course, when I came of age, I did not know much. Still, somehow, I could read, write, and cipher to the rule of 3, but that was all. I have not been to school since. The little advance I now have upon this store of education, I have picked up from time to time under the presence of necessity.
Lincoln will famously debate the little giant Stephen A. Douglas in the Lincoln-Douglas debates of 1858, right there opposing each other for a U.S. Senate seat.
I was raised to farm work, which I continued till I was 22. At 21, I came to Illinois and passed the first year in Illinois, Macon County. Then I got to New Salem, then at the time in Sangamon, now in Menard County, where I remained a year as a sort of clerk in a store.
There's a lot of buzz in the East about this prairie lawyer that's holding his own against the most powerful, influential politician in the antebellum period.
Then came the Black Hawk War, and I was elected a captain of volunteers, a success which gave me more pleasure than any I have had since.
He urges Lincoln to write a little bit about himself, because then Fell can send that to Joseph Lewis, who's a newspaper editor in Pennsylvania.
I went to campaign, was elated, ran for the legislature that same year, 1832, and was beaten. The only time I ever have been beaten by the people. The next and 3 succeeding biennial elections, I was elected to the legislature. I was not a candidate afterwards.
Versions of this autobiographical sketch will circulate in the Eastern press, and it will play a role, perhaps a small role, in getting Lincoln's name out there.
During this legislative period, I had studied law and removed to Springfield to make practice it. In 1846, I was once elected to the lower house of Congress. Was not a candidate for re-election.
He had been a somewhat failed backbencher, one-term Whig congressman.
Always a Whig in politics, and generally on the Whig electoral tickets, making active canvasses.
He returns back to Springfield somewhat disillusioned by the political process.
From 1849 to 1854, both inclusive, practiced law more assiduously than ever before. I was losing interest in politics.
And then what happens?
The repeal of the Missouri Compromise aroused me again.
Here he is referencing the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, ushered through Congress by Lincoln's political nemesis, the Democratic senator from the state of Illinois, Stephen A. Douglas, known as the Little Giant.
What I have done since then is pretty well known.
The Kansas-Nebraska Act was really a fire bell in the night for Lincoln and others. It was an existential threat to the Union itself, because what it did was it threatened to open the institution of slavery to heretofore free Western territories.
If any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said, I am, in height, 6 feet 4 inches, nearly, lean in flesh, weighing on an average 180 pounds, dark complexion with coarse black hair and gray eyes.
From the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, we will see the birth of the Republican Party, which originally is a anti-slavery expansion party.
No other marks or brands recollected.
Poking fun at himself and his rural roots, right? A brand, right? Livestock. But I believe he's also making a reference to the institution of slavery. Runaway slaves, notices in northern papers would often indicate marks or brands to identify fugitive enslaved people. He would become the moral voice and the political leader of, this new movement to halt the expansion of slavery.
Yours very truly, A. Lincoln.
McHistory is a co-production of WGLT and the McLean County Museum of History. You heard Bill Kemp and Frankie Gordey. Charlie Schlenker produced this episode.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.